Welcome to the Mobile Nations Podcast, bringing together the heads of state from Android, BlackBerry, iOS, WebOS, and Windows Phone. And now your host for this episode, from Android Central, Phil Nickinson, from Crackberry.com, Kevin Mitchell, and from Timpy.com, Renee Ritchie.
There we go, Kevin. We did it.
Right on.
I can no longer take it off when Phil wants to start drinking from the flask.
So the good news here, do we have audio?
Yes.
So the good news here is when we do the final version of this podcast for playback, we won't have video this time around. So we all have another 2 weeks to get skinnier.
Yes.
Kevin needs a tan in this lighting, and we'll work out these kinks for the next show. So
and we'll let Phil get more than an hour's sleep before the show next time.
That's
I'll be all right.
Should we move on? It seems like RIM's Q2 discussion is cursing our feed here. So let's. The future is bright for BlackBerry. Don't you ever doubt it, Renee and Phil. Ever.
I will never, ever doubt it again.
Phil, yeah, sure. You're such a jerk.
So, Phil, while Kevin was busy getting BlackBerry doom and gloom, you literally had, I don't know, I lost count of how many Android phones. There was the Ericsson event, you had some LG stuff, you had some Motorola stuff. When does this insanity stop?
It won't. Ever. No, I mean, we're kind of into a new era of Android smartphones, and that is we have dual-core phones that are 4G capable as well, and I mean real 4G, like WiMAX and LTE. So we have, just out today, on September 16th, we have and here's the full name. I got to take a big breath before I say it. The Samsung Galaxy S2 Sprint Epic 4G Touch.
Shut up.
You know what? I could not fit it in the titles, Phil. Name. I had to use ellipses in the title.
That's ridiculous.
That is the full name.
Say it again.
The Samsung Galaxy S2 Sprint Epic 4G Touch.
That's almost like a Microsoftian name.
Oh, it's horrible. It's so awesome.
Live with Windows Enterprise Edition.
That is the first U.S. version of the Galaxy S2, which was announced way back in February. The rest of the world has had this thing for a while, and we're just now getting it. I've got it here. It looks beautiful. It is so thin for a 4G phone, for a WiMAX device. So, if you remember the Evo 4G, and I don't have mine here anymore, but, the Evo is a lot thicker. The Thunderbolt is thicker. Here it is compared to the Thunderbolt. And,
wow.
Look at the difference. So the one on top is LTE, the one on the bottom is WiMAX. It's fast. It's got a dual-core Exynos processor. I think it's 1.2 gigahertz. I'll get yelled at for getting that wrong.
What is that? Hold on. What is that processor, Phil? Because we've heard a lot about it maybe being the fastest processor ever in mobile.
All right, here's my thing on that. So first off, Exynos is a system on a chip, so it's not just a processor, right? This thing handles everything: graphics, audio, video, whatever. So people talk about, what's the fastest processor? What's the best? Well, here's my thing. Stick two of these phones up side by side and ask somebody to tell me what the processor is. They'll have no idea. That doesn't matter. And you look at benchmarks, we don't even do benchmark tests anymore because, first of all, most people don't understand how they work in Android, and you're not actually comparing the hardware of one phone to the hardware of another. You're comparing the benchmark app, which gets tunneled through the virtual machine on Android because everything works through a Dalvik virtual machine. So there's big volume.
Wait, Phil, can I stop you? Can you just take a moment and explain benchmarking on Android?
No, I can't, and nobody else can, and that's the problem. So,
okay.
So you're not channeling Jerry right now.
No, I need to wake him up and explain this. You have these benchmark tests that test pure CPU power and input-output write speeds and stuff like that, which can be manipulated. Jerry did a great test of how he made a 2-year-old phone jump like 900 points just by changing a setting. So they can be manipulated, and it really tests how the software is put together, I think, a little more than just the pure hardware. So the catch is with Android phones is everything runs through the Dalvik virtual machine. So you're not going directly from software to hardware. It's being interpreted, I guess, for lack of a better.
Not even the games? The games aren't even hitting the metal?
I don't think so. I think everything goes through the DVM. Now, I'm sure I'll get emails if I'm wrong on that. So we don't even do benchmark tests anymore, and we've done them in the past. I've done them with Samsung engineers in a bar before. They're fun to look at, but they're not really interpretive of really how a phone will look and feel and act. So we try to be more descriptive about that in our reviews now. I'm like, here's how the phone actually worked. I don't care what the benchmark number is. That's a number. And if every post you read on benchmark benchmarks has this big caveat that says benchmarks aren't everything. Well, maybe you need to rethink how you're doing it. So that's what we've done. As far as, this phone and just how fast it is, I mean, the UI is completely smooth. I have zero lag in it. Motorola's new dual-core stuff is just about there as well. If there's any lag, I don't think it's the hardware. I think it's the software. So you really do have to take that in consideration when you're looking at these phones.
Verizon told me that if I wanted to buy a phone, I had to tell my wife it had a Tegra 2 processor. And this processor sounds so fast that maybe I'll get even more than a tablet from my wife if I tell her about it.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, I mean, a dual-core processor, whether it's Tegra, whether it's Exynos, I mean, it all depends on what you're doing. A dual-core processor won't necessarily make your UI fly. It's not going to make it any slower, right? That's to be damn sure. But, having more RAM in these phones makes a big difference. It's certainly a faster processor. I think what the dual-core stuff really does is allow you to push video better.
Yeah.
So I've seen quad-core hardware designs, right? NVIDIA showed us to them back at Mobile World Congress. And on one hand, it doesn't look any different, but what you get is more interaction on the screen. So the example we had was some sort of like medieval war game or whatever. So instead of 200 characters on the screen all fighting each other, you can have 400. Outputting video is the big one, I think. I still don't know how many people do that. And Renee, you guys, we've got it on the iPad. You can do AirPlay and all this stuff. I mean, are people really plugging their tablets and phones into their TVs that much? I just don't see it.
Well, the thing is with the AirPlay is you don't need to plug it in. You just sit there. And among the geeks, it is huge not because Apple has to obey Hollywood and not do anything interesting, but you get apps like AirPlay on there, and suddenly any video on any machine on your Wi-Fi network can channel through the iPad to your TV. And with iOS 5, they're going to do AirPlay mirroring. And I've actually seen Georgia's 5-year-old, well, just turned 6-year-old, playing Plants vs. Zombies on his iPad on iOS 5, press the AirPlay button, suddenly it's up on the big screen TV on the wall, and he's controlling it with the iPad, so it becomes your home video game console as well. But they do need a dual core for that, because one core handles beaming the video to the TV, and the other one handles playing the game.
Yeah, it's really getting bad with Android because so many of these phones are forgoing an HDMI port, be it mini or micro or whatever, and they're using these MHL adapters which plug into micro USB, and then you have to plug in another micro USB cable into the adapter to power it, and then you have the HDMI coming out. I mean, it's ridiculous. I will never in a million years do that. But back to the whole system on a chip and processor thing. I mean, yeah, these are fast, these are powerful. These are the way these phones should be right now. No lag whatsoever. Browsing is as smooth as it's ever been, and it's just really, really nice. So, when somebody says, "Oh, Tegra's no good," you need an Exynos processor, that's ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous statement. And
last year's Lamborghini is no good. You need this year's Lamborghini.
Yeah, and everybody's going to be going faster. Whether it's and TI is doing some really interesting things coming up in the next year or so as well. But 99% of the population out there, unless you're an engineer for one of these companies, I seriously doubt you'll ever be able to tell.
And how's the battery life, Phil? How's the battery life?
On this Galaxy S2 one, pretty good. LTE is such a battery suck, and that just hasn't changed. So on the Droid Bionic, it can chew through some battery on LTE. This is a little better, though. I've been really disappointed in Sprint's WiMAX network. So I was up in New York for a day and a half, flying through Atlanta, still bad there. And the WiMAX was just so sketchy. So it's really gonna, and I don't say that to just bash Sprint, because obviously there are some really good WiMAX areas. But the point is, it's really going to depend on where you are and in how your network is. So if the radio is pinging off and on trying to get a 4G signal, it's going to kill it. Even if you're in a good 4G network, you're going to use battery, because the higher speeds just use more battery. It's the way it is, and until we do something about that, you're going to need an extra battery or just be able to plug in.
Be a man and plug in your phone, Phil.
Yeah, but it's got a Super AMOLED Plus display, which is just beautiful. So, the blacks are really black. What that is you get more subpixels per pixel. So instead of 8, you have 12. Again, probably not something you're ever going to notice unless you've got them side by side. But it looks really, really nice. This is a really good crop of phones from Samsung. Be curious to see, Samsung is as thin as it gets right now. And I know there are big arguments whether this is thinner than the iPhone 4. It certainly feels like it. But I don't know if you noticed, this screen is huge. It's 4.5 inches. 4.5 freaking inches. It's actually the second. I don't have it next to me here. It's actually the second 4.5 inch phone I have here, and it's just night and day. Now, the phone itself is actually about the same size as the Droid Bionic here.
Phil,
But
some
the
people are
screen-
saying that this is the first of the next generation of Android phones. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it is. I think this and the Droid Bionic, I mean, when you combine dual-core and LTE, that's the next thing. We're going to see quad-core phones starting next year sometime. We'll probably see them announced at CES or MWC. So, I mean, yeah, on one hand, you have the hardware. We're still waiting on an ice cream sandwich to be announced, and, there are rumors that that's not going to be everything everybody thought it would be, but then that got taken back, and I don't know. So, on one hand, yeah, it's the new generation for hardware. I'm really looking forward to the new generation of software especially because of what we're seeing come out of Microsoft right now. I think we really need to see Android try to do something different pretty soon.
Should we segue into what's happening with Microsoft right now, because they had their build event?
Yeah, that's been going on in Los Angeles, and we'd seen bits and pieces of Windows 8 before, but now it's really being shown off in the developer preview. So I've downloaded it and have been playing with it, and I mean, Microsoft's going balls to the wall here. They're basically taking their Metro UI from Windows Phone 7, moving it over into the desktop, and more important, I think, the tablet space. And I'm really, really interested to see how that's going to work in a traditional desktop keyboard and mouse metaphor.
But that's not all they're doing. Like they're not taking Metro like you have on your Windows Phone 7 or 7.5 and putting that on a tablet. They're doing what they did when they put Windows as a shell over DOS. They're putting Metro as a shell over Windows 8, and you almost have like 3 layers of Windows going on now. You start off in Metro the way you could start off in Windows, and then maybe you can launch. I guess it's the opposite, right? Because in the old days, you'd enter DOS and then type in Win and launch Windows. Now you're entering in Metro, and you've got to launch desktop to get to Windows 8.
Yeah, but yes and no. I mean, I'm running it in a virtual machine, so it's not quite the same. But you have your little, you have a little desktop button, and you click it, and it takes you to a more traditional, like Windows 7 like desktop. But it's running within Windows 8. I mean, it's a really different way of thinking, and I'm really curious to see how we all deal with that. I know people are already talking about getting rid of it, which is just ridiculous. But kudos to Microsoft for really trying something different, because I think we're at a point in time where we really do need something different.
This is when Dan would say, Microsoft got taste, because it looks beautiful. Well, Kevin, it doesn't look like a Microsoft product. This looks like, not in terms of Windows itself, but in terms of the UI and Metro, they started over. They did something almost unthinkable for Microsoft.
That's true. And you know what? I'm getting to a point, too, where I want to try change. I used to be a PC guy, for the first 20 whatever years of my life, 27 years of my life. Now I've been all Mac the last few years. And I'm getting mad at Apple because this latest update just ruined 2 of my computers. It slowed them down. The benefits it brought, I think it brought more annoying features with it, too. So I feel like Apple's gone away from simplicity, adding, too many layers of iteration to something that used to be simple, and made it more confusing by trying to make it more simple. So now I'm like, maybe it's time to go back to PC for a while. It's cool again.
You're just cranky that RIM doesn't make laptops yet.
No, I'm not. I just don't think it's, I don't know, adding so many layers to something, right? Complex systems are just the result of what once was a simple system getting iterated on to plug your podcast, Renee.
Nice.
And and now I'm ready for change. I'm bored with Mac. I want to go Windows 8.
Well, the interesting thing for me, at least, about Windows 8 is the Microsoft and Intel divorce, because before it was the Wintel empire. Everything Microsoft did ran on. I mean, they experimented with DEC and a couple of their companies, but the majority of their computers, and for most of their time, it was Windows on Intel. And now Microsoft is going to be running on ARM, and Intel just said that they're going to be getting what, Phil?
Intel is going to be doing not all Android, but all Android starting next year will be Intel capable. So we're going to see just a whole new breed of phones.
The world is upside down. I can't take this anymore.
Oh, yeah. It's nuts. And I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. I mean, right now, and this kind of goes for the iPad as well, but especially Android tablets, they're more of a novelty still, right? I mean, I think the iPad has become more ubiquitous, certainly. I mean, how many millions are out there? 500 million, something like that. half a billion million. That's a lot. But no, I mean, Android tablets are really good, but they're still very nichey. But I think once we get Intel involved and not because NVIDIA's done a bad job. I think NVIDIA's done a really, really good job with the tablets. But once we get more processor manufacturers involved, I think it's going to get really interesting.
But they, like, dude, Kevin, I don't know if you watched the entire demo, but when they at the Microsoft Build event, they pull out these Samsung tablets running Windows 8, and there you have Intel chips in them, and the fan starts up inside.
Yeah, that's not good. But again, developer hardware preview type stuff.
We've never seen Intel do, like, Intel's tried to do low power for so long, like the Atom line, and they it's like that thing that, you know, we're always a couple days away from Intel actually getting a successful low power chip. And until they do, I'm kind of scared by the idea of a 3-minute battery life Intel tablet that I can use to keep cool in the summer. Like, Kevin, do you think this is the right way to go? Should Intel be forcing down their processors, or should we just be using ARM because it works?
I think it's just an iPad market right now, so it doesn't really matter what everybody else does.
We've sold tens of dozens of millions of them.
It's true. It's true. No, I'm not sure, honestly. I think it's going to shake its way out, and whenever people find something that's they can make profit off of and it works well enough, and I think it's coming to an end where, earlier we said, is this something that just tech people care about, or do consumers actually care about it? And I think it's at a point where consumers care less and less and less about the specs and everything. I mean, like, Phil, on your Android phones, they're all fast enough now, right? Are there
exactly.
ones that are crap that you'd want to stay away from? There's probably a few, but
oh yeah, no, there are actually a good number of kind of low-end phones. It's a bigger problem in the tablet space,
right?
Because we saw this problem last Christmas, because there would be these $199 tablets, and they were just horrible. We get these emails like, it doesn't have the Android market on it. How do I get it on there? Or I bought
doesn't have a screen.
I bought this thing and it just sucks. But even the low-end tablets are starting to get better. We saw a bunch the other night at a press event in New York. But at the same time, you have companies like LG who have made this Optimus One line that is just everywhere, all over the world. It's known as the Optimus One. Each carrier here in the U.S. and a lot of the regionals have versions of it too, and it is a good kind of mid-level, entry-level phone. So they're getting better about it, right? And they're not just slapping it into everything. But this goes back to why Honeycomb the code was never released. That one was never made open source, because Google didn't want people taking this OS and hacking it onto these devices and just making it this horrible experience that wasn't intended. And I understand.
By people, you mean Jerry, right?
Well, no, not just Jerry. And I'm sure there are people within Google who are, disappointed that it was never released, because that was kind of always the intention. I mean, that's a business decision and a political decision, and I understand it. And there are reasons behind it, but that's why. So they wanted to make a good tablet experience. I think Honeycomb is pretty good. I think they can do better, and I'm certainly expecting better.
I wrote to Andy Rubin telling him my make command for Honeycomb kept failing, and I never heard back.
Sorry, dude.
Well, that's the whole thing with this Windows thing, is that we have right now, Microsoft for 10 years, they tried to put Windows, what was it called? Tablet PC. You had XP running on the tablet with a stylus, and it never worked. Bill Gates was the only one carrying him around. I felt lonely and sad for the man. And then Apple made the iPad, and instead of using a desktop OS, they brought up the mobile OS. But now, Kev, you're going to have Windows kind of trying to do both things at once, have the mobile Metro layer, and underneath that, full-on Windows, so you could launch Excel if you want to. You think that's appealing, or you think that that's just indecisive?
It's indecisive. It could be appealing to some, but I still think, it comes back to the category of product, right? And if you really want to do that and be productive, to me, a laptop is what you're going to go with still, versus having to put this dual persona onto a tablet. And I think for consuming media and apps and that, it's simplicity rules king right now. So I don't know. I don't know if it'll work or not. I mean, I really, and Renee, I think it was 2 weekends ago when we were beta testing our video stuff here, we got into an argument about, has the iPad really changed anything? And I said, it hasn't changed nothing, because it hasn't created a category of product.
It's a media tablet, ask
people
Gartner.
Are not yet waking up on us. No, but I mean, the funny thing is, I don't think there's people in the world right now, there's a few exceptions always, but I don't think the average person is waking up tomorrow morning on a Saturday morning saying, I think I want to go buy a tablet today. Maybe I'll hit the net and see which one's rocking the best processor and what blah, 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 blah is. They're just waking up and saying, I think I'm going to go buy an iPad today.
Yeah.
It's a product still. There's the enthusiasts, the early adopters, the innovators, but right now it does not matter, because it's a product-owned category. It's not like digital cameras where, you know, if I was buying a new SLR tomorrow, I would do my research. If I was buying a new laptop, I'd do my research. If I was buying a new phone, I'd do my research, although you might have bias saying, well, I'm just going to go get an iPhone or an Android or a BlackBerry. But tablets are still, to the vast majority, a product decision. It's like, I don't need a tablet, I need an iPad, or I think I need an iPad. And because Apple built a good looking product, they market the heck out of it. It works well. It's got lots of apps. It fits the bill across many levels. So why would I go look for some split personality Windows tablet right now, unless I really looked at an iPad and it just didn't work for my usage case? That's such a minority still.
Well, that's the market. And, you know, maybe Phil can talk about this because, you know, I've used tablet PCs. And when I first saw this, I thought, you know, it's really interesting, but will they sell more, or will there be more demand than there was for tablet PC? Because I can see the market for the iPad. The iPad is Apple's goal has always been democratizing computers. They made the CLI computer easier to use with the Apple II. They made the GUI mainstream with the Mac, and they've made multi-touch tablets. You know, my mom has an iPad, and my mom still finds a Mac far too hostile to use. She kind of looks at it with fear and dread every time she sits down in front of it. But an iPad, she just sits on the sofa, one app, home button, close, new app, home button.
Well, and remember that Apple does it differently. Apple makes the market for itself.
Yes.
Not always. You know, it's had a few products where it hasn't. We're kind of seeing that with the Android tablets a little bit because we see a few that orient themselves more toward business. The Asus ePad Transformer, the Lenovo ThinkPad, and in both of them have really good keyboard solutions, especially those two because they're not Bluetooth solutions. They actually connect to the device, makes it this one solid piece, and you don't have Bluetooth wonkiness. And I haven't used anything Bluetooth ever that has not been wonky somehow. But at the same time, it's still not the same as using a laptop. And it's still almost as expensive, if not as expensive, as using a laptop.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's a big problem. So when you look at Windows 8...
The value prop is arguable over a laptop.
Right. And so when you look at Windows 8, I think you also have the hardware question on top of that. And that's a big question, especially for the way that Windows does business, for the way that Microsoft does business. It's not, you know, vertically oriented like Apple is. So Apple controls the entire experience, which is why things work.
Sometimes.
Yeah, well, sometimes. But, you know, when you get more OEMs involved, it's tougher.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is, you know, for better or for worse. It's more difficult to do right.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, on one hand, I can see Kevin sitting there with his 7-inch play because, like, Microsoft showed off a big form factor, but Microsoft's OEMs will no doubt come up with several form factors, maybe chassis based, maybe not. But Kev, you have the 7-inch tablet, like the Playbook. You can press a button because this is the thing. Like, first of all, you launch Internet Explorer on Metro and you go to YouTube and no Flash plugin. Can I get the HTML? I don't know. Then you hit desktop, you launch a different version of IE10, and suddenly Flash is there. But you imagine like someone sitting there like my mom or your mom with a Playbook-sized device trying to navigate, like which browser is my Flash?
Yeah, not cool, right? It's just not... it's the backwards way to approach these devices. They're thinking of it from an engineering, whatever standpoint, and not that dead simple end consumer user experience. So,
is that the legacy you think? Like the businesses demanding legacy support that holds them back?
I don't know. People maybe who need to retire and at these companies and they just don't, and then that stuff persists.
That's a bomber reference.
I would almost say no because businesses are still buying. You know, if you're lucky, you've got Windows 7 in like a big business now, but they're probably still running XP.
Some cases 2000. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, true.
Well, it was odd because I was listening to a bunch of marketers talking yesterday, and they were talking about different ways of accessing a company, and they said one thing they're noticing a lot of now is if you send an email to a CEO when previously you'd get no response, you now quickly get a response CCing people you should talk to with the line at the bottom, sent from my iPad. So it's interesting to me that Apple can make one device that is easy enough for both my mom and a CEO to use.
But you know what, though? I would get so mad if I was a shareholder of that company. I mean, even yesterday, Renee sent me an email, and it was a decent length email. And at the bottom, it said sent from my iPhone. And I immediately phoned him and I said, never send me an email that long from your iPhone again, because that's way too inefficient. And I feel like you have too much time on your hands if you send those on your touchscreen device. Send it from a computer, damn it. But it was kind of funny.
Well, I get 500-word emails from you sent from my BlackBerry, and I have no idea which one you're using it.
It's different. I'm using the 9900.
This time, any time of the day, it could be a different BlackBerry.
No, I'm pretty biased right now towards the 9900.
At CES, you were rocking a purple flip.
True.
Yeah, the old BlackBerry style. Poor guy.
You want to see what I just bought? Check out this bad boy.
Nice.
Samsung Blackjack 2.
Did you hack Android onto it?
$50, man. Got it online for $50.
Is it running Froyo?
I got my AT&T SIM in it. Works just fine. I forgot how horrible Windows 6.5 Windows Mobile. How did we ever use that?
I had a question for you, Phil. You put up a review of a Cricket Android phone, which was a cheap phone with a cheap plan, and Georgia kind of referenced your review and then wondered if this fabled iPhone Nano or iPhone budget we were going to get, because the rumor Tippy heard is that, don't expect the usual carrier deals with this.
Right.
And Kevin spoke earlier about, the old BlackBerry OS staying around for developing markets. Could we start to see a war going on there where Apple maybe has a repackaged iPhone 4 running on Cricket or maybe Sprint on a Zero kind of a plan? Is that something that we could be seeing next year?
Yeah, there's no reason why they couldn't. And the big thing about the Cricket phone was I think it was $200, no contracts, so that's a big draw. No contracts. Cricket's plan is all encompassing, so it's voice, data. In their case, music. They had this Move Music system, which is the big deal for this phone. And it's download all you want. Everything that's in it, you can download it to your phone. And it only does it over their 3G network. You can't do it over Wi-Fi, which might be a big deal to you, maybe not. But yeah, I love these all-you-can-eat plans. For $65 a month. You can't beat that. Could you imagine something like that with an iPhone? With iTunes behind it now, that was also the big draw, right? So you're not paying 99 cents a song, and it's just total all you can eat,
which the record labels would never give to Apple.
Oh, absolutely not. And I'm not sure Apple would want it. Apple will make more money otherwise, but I could see where that would be very alluring.
Because I'm going to have to get a lot of advice from you and Phil, because I've never ever had to review two phones in a year before, and I don't know how to pace myself. It's double my workload, Kevin.
I'm going to send you the Lloyd coffee mug if that's what you need.
Phil has no sympathy for your complaining right now.
No, it's so crazy because this year, usually there's going to be a new iPhone every June. We hear leaks. Someone did leave an iPhone at the bar again this year. At least we have some things we can depend on. I don't know what Apple's employee beer budget is, but thank goodness it's as high as it apparently is. But this year, the rumors are so helter-skelter because on one hand, people are saying Apple's not putting out a new iPhone. You're going to get the 4S, which is an iPhone 4, maybe thinner, maybe with a better camera, with a dual-core processor, and that's it. And other people are saying, no, that's going to be the budget iPhone. We're going to have this all-new, redesigned, unicorn iPhone with a aluminum back, flatter than a piece of paper. I'm sure it'll make you an espresso in the morning if you ask it nicely. But we've seen almost no real leaks of this phone. So we have no idea going into Apple's fall event what we're actually going to get. And now today, there's the rumor that the phone they've never announced that may not exist might be delayed.
Okay, wait. I got a question, though. What about those Casemate images that showed up yesterday?
Yeah, those because a long time ago, so what happens is the people at the factory where they make iPhones are friendly with the people at the factory who make cases, and they've had some people charged already for selling information. So this engineering diagram sort of got leaked out that said this is what the iPhone's going to look like, and because it's so profitable to be first in cases, a bunch of case companies, paid a few grand for the mold, ran a limited production run so they could have their cases ready. But then some people are saying this phone doesn't exist. It's all based on speculation. And now some people are saying that it's delayed. It's almost like that episode of West Wing where Josh invents a plan to fight inflation and then says he just disagrees with it. It's just so meta. It's Phil, help me out with this. How do I deal with it? You deal with crazy rumors every day.
I ignore most of them.
I make them up. Much better strategy. Then you're never confused.
Nice. Do you think there'll be a backlash if Apple comes out in September and shows off only a redesigned iPhone 4 after 15 months? I mean, they did that with the 3G and the 3GS, but it was nowhere near as competitive back then. Could Apple get away with the same phone for another year?
Honestly, I think they could.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they could. I mean, it's still fashionable. It's still fast. It's still not lacking apps. It's got the ecosystem. eventually, you know, the tech writers and the geeks will get maybe bored because they just need to spend money. There's too much money they don't want to save for their old age. They just want to blow it on gadgets. So those people might feel bad, but you know, Renee, your mom, you know, Phil's mom, my mom, like an iPhone 4 will still be good for them 2 years from now.
Yep.
3 years from now. So I think Apple could ride it out and milk as much profit out of it as they want to.
But the fashionistas will be so sad.
But do you think it's any less fashionista today than it was when it came out? I think it's still okay. I don't look at an iPhone 4 and I'm like, oh, that thing looks old. Poor you, poor you.
You're right. I think it just makes people sad. I think that we've gotten acculturated. Like, because Phil gets so many phones, Kevin. Even you get so many phones. We get one phone, and when it's a repeat, you kind of only get one phone in 2 years. We feel kind of neglected.
Right. Well, you know, maybe Apple should just get out of mobile. We were there first. I mean, Jobs is gone, so I mean that's a start. Or I mean, he's not CEO or whatever. I mean,
yeah, you had a good run, Apple. It's time for you.
Maybe they should move into automotive or something. Oh wait, they already have the Volkswagen Beetle.
No, QNX owns automotive, and Android and Microsoft are fighting that out. I don't think they're going to make an Apple car. I don't see Johnny Ive. He drives a Jaguar. He's fine. I don't think we need that.
You got to say it right. Jaguar.
Jaguar made out of aluminium. All right. Well, Kevin Mitchell, look, we made it. Where can we find out more about you, sir?
You can find me on crackberry.com, on the Twitters at crackberrykevin. And if we want to be trendy with the About Me thing, or maybe that's already not trendy, I think it's aboutme.com. Or no, wait, about.me/crackberrykevin.
Nice.
Whew.
Phil Nickinson?
Hi.
Hey.
You can get me at androidcentral.com. Phil Nickinson on Twitter. Phil Nickinson on Google+. I've got my home address there and most of my posts and my phone numbers. You can call me, come hang out.
Your measurements.
Have a cup of coffee. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm a Capricorn.
Medical results to follow. You can find me at Rene Ritchie on Twitter. You can find me at tippy.com. You can Google plus me, Rene Ritchie. I don't know how to find people on Google Plus by just their name, Phil. Do I have to Google them?
You just search. You go up to the top, start typing a name, and it finds them.
I can't just write plus Phil Nickinson and automatically be taken to you by the interwebs?
That's a good question.
I don't want that. You can find all of us at Mobile Nations. We are here every second Friday, now in glorious video. You can also go to mobilenations.com/shows and find all our fine podcasts, including the crackberry.com podcast with Kevin, androidcentral.com, the baddest ass podcast on the Android internets, with Phil Nickinson and company. Tippy has iPhone Live and iPad Live. We also have the WP Central podcast. We have Iterate. We have Zen and Tech, Super Functional. There's about 10 shows to keep you busy because no one really wants to watch network TV anymore. It's all done. Finished. We replaced them, Kevin.
Right on.
And we will see you guys again in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.
Later.
Renee, spell my name right next time.
I spelled your name wrong?
Yeah.
Where?
Mitchelluk with an L-U-C-K. I mean, it makes more sense the way you spelled it.
No.
personally.
I kind of like it that way.
I actually, sorry.
You have a better chance of pronouncing it correctly this way. You should throw a T in there, like Mitch with a T, and then nobody would ever say it wrong.
There we go. Hang on. I had it actually corrected, and then when I rebooted, I lost the correction.
Sure, you did.
Nice. We're going to re-record the intro really quickly, just so I have video to put in front of the recording here.
Okay.
1 second.